The next morning, Emma woke to the soft warmth of sunlight filtering through her curtains, a stark contrast to the previous day's storm. The memories of dancing in the rain with Jake felt like a dream, surreal, almost too magical to be true. But when she glanced at her soaked clothes, still draped over the chair, she knew it had been real. Her heart fluttered, recalling the look in Jake's eyes as they danced, the unspoken connection that had sparked between them. She wasn't sure what it all meant, but for the first time in a long while, she felt hopeful. Later that afternoon, as Emma stepped out into the garden, the air smelled of fresh earth and blossoming flowers, everything refreshed from the rain. She smiled, remembering the way they had twirled and laughed, carefree in the downpour. It was a memory she wanted to hold on to, but she wasn't sure what came next. Was it just a spontaneous moment shared between two neighbors, or did it mean something more? Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of a car door closing. She looked up and saw Jake standing by his truck across the street. He waved, a grin tugging at the corners of his mouth. Emma's heart skipped a beat, and before she could second-guess herself, she waved back. Moments later, Jake was walking toward her, his familiar easygoing stride making her smile. As he approached, Emma felt a flutter of nerves. She wasn't used to this, to feeling so vulnerable, so open. But something about Jake's presence calmed her, just like the rain had. "Hey," he said, his voice warm and friendly, but with a hint of something else, something unspoken. "Hey," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "I wasn't sure if I'd see you today after, yesterday." Jake chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. "Yeah, about that. I figured I'd come by and see if you wanted to do something a little less wet this time. Maybe a coffee?" Emma's heart did a little flip. Coffee sounded nice, normal, simple. But she couldn't shake the feeling that yesterday had been anything but ordinary. "I'd like that," she said, a shy smile spreading across her face. They ended up at the local cafe, a cozy little spot tucked between the old bookstore and the town's only bakery. The scent of freshly brewed coffee filled the air as they sat by the window, watching people pass by outside. At first, the conversation was light, filled with small talk about work, hobbies, and the quirky charm of their town. But as the minutes passed, Emma realized she was genuinely enjoying Jake's company. There was something about him that made her feel at ease, like they had known each other far longer than just the occasional nods across the street. "I have to ask," Jake said, leaning forward slightly, his eyes playful, "have you always been the type to dance in the rain, or was yesterday a special occasion?" Emma laughed, the sound surprising her. "Honestly, I think I forgot how to for a long time. Yesterday just happened. I couldn't resist." Jake smiled, his gaze softening. "I'm glad you didn't." There was a pause, a comfortable silence that hung between them as they sipped their coffee. Emma found herself looking out the window, the memory of the rain swirling in her mind again. She had spent so much time living cautiously, staying in her own little bubble. But the storm, the dance, and now Jake, it all felt like the beginning of something new. Jake's voice broke through her thoughts. "That dance meant something to me." Emma looked at him, her heart picking up speed. There was a sincerity in his eyes, a vulnerability that mirrored her own. "It wasn't just the rain," he continued. "I think I've been waiting for a moment like that, with someone like you." The words hung in the air between them, weighty and real. Emma didn't know how to respond at first, but she could feel her heart opening, just like the clouds had the day before. The barriers she had built around herself, the walls of caution and fear, were beginning to crumble. "I felt it too," she admitted softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Jake's smile grew, a slow, genuine expression that lit up his face. "Then maybe we don't need to wait for the next storm to dance." Emma laughed, her heart lighter than it had been in years. "No, I don't think we do." They left the cafe together, walking side by side down the quiet street. The sun was shining now, but the memory of the rain was still fresh in their minds, a shared moment that had brought them together in a way neither of them had expected. As they walked, their hands brushed, tentative at first. Then Jake reached over and took her hand, his touch gentle but sure. Emma glanced up at him, her pulse racing, and he smiled back, as if to say this is just the beginning. And in that moment, under the warm glow of the afternoon sun, Emma knew that no matter what storms might come, she would always be ready to step outside and dance, this time with Jake by her side.